Yeah, look at me. I'm like UPS. Whoops. Don't focus on that. Focus on this. I have tools now. I have an FSM Garage Gear line of carts from BP Manufacturing. They're the company based out of Cadillac, Michigan that makes 100% awesome and aluminum carts. This one here will hold 600 pounds. The tires also never ever go flat, which in my experience prior to this, whenever I need a two-wheel dolly and I go grab one, the tires are flat, not this one. This one is also powder coated in one of my favorite colors of all time. The same color I painted my 1997 Toyota Tacoma. This is Porsche Riviera Blue. Sexy. I love it. Anyway, if you go to BP Manufacturing's website, I'll put a link in our description. You can see all of my new Signature Series line of carts from that company. Also, brand new Party Pulley Army shirt. Just in time for Hot Rod Drag Week. Because that's right. Tony Angelo and I are going back to Hot Rod Drag Week to reclaim our A-Gas crown. Not clowns. Crown. That's what we're going back for. And like a phoenix rising from the ashes, Blasphemy is almost fixed. I don't know if you remember or not, a couple episodes ago, might have accidentally run her into a pipe. Well, I pulled off to the side to get out of everybody's way to get my parachute off the ground. And I was BSing with my fellow competitor who's in third place, whose name I can't remember right now because I just ran my car into a concrete block. I might have totaled the entire suspension, steering, and oh, by the way, left front wheel on this car. But thanks to Scott's Hot Rods in Knoxville, Tennessee, we now have A-arms up front. We have more travel too. We went from 5 inches to 8 inches of suspension travel, and I believe the next time Tony and I use this thing, we're finally going to be able to take advantage of all that Hemi torque at the starting line of the drag strip and go quicker than we ever have before. Stick with us. This episode's going to be rad. We're going to detail all of this. Welcome back to Finnegan's Garage. Thank you for hanging out. Appreciate it as always, especially those of you that have pushed the subscribe button or the bell notification button, something that tells you, because we can't rely on YouTube, to let you know that we have new content every Sunday. That's the goal. And if you watched our series of videos about taking Blasphemy to its first drag and drive event in nearly 2 years, that was Midwest Drags a few weeks ago, then you know we finished. Yes, we did. And we ran okay. Not amazing, but okay. That really was a warm-up for us for the event we're actually shooting for, which is the 20th anniversary of Hot Rod Drag Week, which is happening this September 2024. Yes, I would like to return. I believe Tony Angelo is going to go with me, and we're going to take another shot at immortality, that is winning the A-Gas class, which will not be easy. The good news is we're way further ahead of the game than we ever have been. I know in that video when we went to Midwest Drags, I said, hey, we're not tested. And it's true. We hadn't been to a drag strip in months, and we hadn't driven the car down the road in weeks, but we had done it. I knew we could complete the drive, which we did. We did about 800 miles, really had no problems with Blasphemy, other than some tuning stuff that we worked out on our own. And on the drag strip, we had a ton of problems. And a lot of you like literally looked at me like I was an idiot, like I couldn't tune or drive my own car. And you're not totally wrong about that, let's be real. However, we did have some self-inflicted problems that are easily overcome now that we've gone to Midwest Drags and seen what it's like to drive this car now with the really nose-high stance that we have. And little background, when we won Drag Week, this car sit level, if not maybe an inch higher in the front, not much. And the car hooked incredibly well. It worked fantastic. Since then, we've tried to mod this thing to make it more reliable. And one of the mods we made was going from a wet sump oiling system that when I pulled the parachute, the deceleration made our oil pressure go to 0 when the oil, ran right away from the pickup. We switched it to a dry sump oiling system. We no longer have the oil pressure problems we had before. However, to clear the dry sump oil pan over our steering linkage at our axle, we had to raise the nose of the car up. And when we did that, we lost a lot of our suspension travel. The front end is stiffer than it ever has been, and the car just doesn't want to hook. You can't put it on a two-step anymore. You can't leave with as much horsepower as you did. We spent all of the first day of Midwest Drags figuring out the fact that I was just going to have to ease out of the clutch, roll the gas in with my right foot, and we were going to go 135, 140 short times and run 9.0s, 920s, 930s, 1/8 second pass. We weren't going to be consistent at all. And I'm not excited about that. And during the drive, Joe and I actually talked about the fact that we're going to redo the front end of this car to get it back to where it used to be. And that all happened right before I ran into a concrete pipe in the grass next to the return road at the last drag strip. Essentially, I didn't see it. The nose of the car is so high, the hood scoop is so tall. I pulled off, grabbed my parachute, got in the car, drove forward 3 feet, and hit it with the front suspension and steering and completely destroyed it. So our mod list begins there. Make it handle better, make it hook better, make it so I can see better. And then we have a laundry list of stuff over here that needs to be done right after I somehow figure out if my house is burning down because the fire alarm's going off. That's my wife. It's not my fault this time. I didn't even start the car, I promise.
If one goes off, they both go off.
They both go off. Okay, all right. It was us. I didn't start the car, but Joe did when I wasn't here.
My bad.
Got it. No, it's fine. It's fine. At least I know now. I was going crazy.
I left the garage door open for a while, too. So you can see this tire. It looks nice and straight, right? Dun, 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 dun. And this one's a little out of whack.
I'm going to show you the racetrack. Right? Here's your drag strip. There's the center line, right lane, left lane. Let's just say there's the finish line. All right. So you go through the finish line, pull your parachute, and then you both come down here and you turn out. And there's this little tiny narrow road that runs for about a half a mile through the woods. Not to Grandma's house, but here's the timing shack. You get your time slip right there, right? It's a little guy hanging out, super cool, hand you the slip. And then you come back, there's pits here. You come wrap all the way around back to where we were, right? So I'm in the right lane. I come through here, throw the chute, turn off, and go, well, there's literally nowhere to park except grass and grass and grass and grass. And so I got out of the way because this guy in this lane also threw his chute, needed somewhere to go, so I pulled over here. And he pulled over here. And we sat BSing with each other about what just happened on the racetrack. My driver's door, was open, and I got out, and I'm standing here. I pretty much look like that, maybe with more hair. And he's here, and we BS, and parachute's laying, not in the road anymore because we've both gotten out of the road. And more cars come, and those cars pull up behind us. And so we grab our parachutes, roll them up. I put it right here through that window, walked around the car, got in, and from the driver's seat, all I see is hood scoop, and I see the woods up here. There's trees, right? I fired the car up, turned the wheel right, let the clutch out, rolled about 2.5 feet, and went boom. And I was like, whoa. And I hit it so hard that my foot went to the floor on the clutch and motor went wow, just it was whoop-ah like that, race car stuff. And I was like, what in the world just happened? So I get out of the car, walk all the way around the door, and find a pipe in the grass. Now, it was not a short pipe. I should have seen it, except I couldn't for the scoop and the raised stance of this car. This pipe was at least this tall, maybe even taller. It was short enough that it did not touch the body of my car, but it was tall enough that it bent the axle, bent the leaf springs, bent the steering, bent everything under there on the last day of Midwest Drags. So we finished, but I broke the car. Now, on the bright side, motor's fine. Trans is good. Our reliability in terms of can we get down the highway? No problem. We just had to work on, stuff I broke and avoid breaking it again, which means we're putting a new scoop on this thing. It's going to be shorter. And then we're going to go through the whole car and get it ready for drag week. We're going to lighten it up. We're going to do whatever we can to get the front end of the car down again so that we can make it hook again and so we can go faster again. So, yeah, that's what happened. Totally my fault, but I feel like it's avoidable if I change some things on the car. Or if the people at Kentucky Dragway, throw out an orange cone or two when you have something in the grass and you give no one anywhere to park.
Well, I did hear that they put a couple of orange Finnegan monuments around this thing now.
Yeah, right around my wishing well that's sticking up out of that ground. That's Finnegan's Well. If you ever go to Kentucky Dragway, Finnegan's Well, left hand, right there. Can't miss it. Because now there's orange cone. Okay, so earlier when we got back from this event, I had noticed that a couple of the nuts had fallen off of the front of our oil pan. And then Joe just pulled the engine diaper off and realized that a couple of the studs fell out of it too. And everything was tight. It's just everything is solid mounted on the car, and vibration got this stuff. I think we'll end up changing the nuts to serrated ones, or like a Nordlock style. That might work better. But here's our issue, right? There is our steering drag link. There's our axle. There's our tie rod. The axle now has a decent amount of clearance to the oil pan. So right now, we've probably got 5 inches between the axle tube and the bottom of the oil pan up front. But that was after we lifted the front of the car about 2.5, 3 inches. The steering drag link, we've only got about 2.5 inches there, and that was after we lifted the car. And lifting the nose of the car really screwed up the handling and its ability to hook at a drag strip. So we'd really like to put all of this back down, which means we need to either section this oil pan and take some height out of it, some depth rather, or we need to convert this car to A-arms and get rid of the axle, because the relationship between these two things can only change by either, again, shortening the oil pan or lowering or raising the suspension. And,
Or, remember how I mentioned before about having a new steering arm made? Which
yeah.
could bring it down lower.
See, what I don't know, because that's the longest one that they sell
We would
at
have
the
to
time.
have someone make one, and I'm trying to remember.
What I don't know, let me stop you here, is
Uh-huh.
that's the longest one anybody offers, and I think it's for a reason. I think if you make it any longer, because we could cut and extend that, I think there might be a reason why you don't want to. I've never seen one longer than that.
Yeah.
But you're right, if that was longer by about 4 inches, that steering arm would
be the same height as the axle.
It would be parallel to the axle, and it would give us lots of clearance. However, we're going to lower the car down 2 inches, and then there goes some of that clearance again. So I don't know. I think the best solution is A-arms, which, you know, contrary to what a lot of people think, lots of A-gas cars in the late 60s had A-arms. This car from the factory would have had A-arms. It just, you know, this chassis, when I bought it, didn't. It was a straight axle. And as much as I like this, I also like being competitive when I go race it. And we have not been able to make the car hook with any number of turns of the shocks or tuning the engine or driving style. So gonna have to do something here.
You know, we could take these, we put holes in all these to lighten it up.
Yeah, but it'll never be as light as a pin-on one. And I thought the same thing you did. So I was like, we'll just keep the hinges and we'll get the other version of this, because they make a fiberglass one, but the fiberglass one has an inner structure in it. And it's lighter than this, but it isn't nearly as light as the pin-on one with no structure.
Got you.
So I'm sitting here going, you know what? Let's just take the hinges out, take these out, take all of it out, and go back to the pin-on style and save a bunch of weight. Because when the car worked best, it did not have this. Plus, this is the most ill-fitting trunklet I've ever seen in my life.
It fits like dog crap.
Like, it doesn't.
It's the worst.
Doesn't shut all the way. It's crooked. I
close it. Every time I close it, I reach down and grab it and make sure it's closed.
I was never stoked with the finish on the inside. Like, the paint was peeling off when I got it. Like, it just, you know, it just, nothing about this was amazing. So let's just take it off.
Okay.
I'll even, if I can't find one, I'll even go back to the 2019, like, one that went above the scoreboard. That's all cracked up. I'll run that again. That's heavy. That's very heavy. All right, in our quest to put this pig on a diet, we have done things already. We have investigated finding new fiberglass parts like doors. Joe took out the rear wall, which that's not, the wall that was in there was one we made, and we made it because the battery used to be back here. And if the battery's here, you have to seal it off from the passenger compartment, so it had a wall, but the battery's not there anymore, so the wall's gone. That didn't weigh much. However, I got a steel trunk from Newbern last year, the year before, because this one blew off multiple times, flew over the scoreboard. We'll cut to the clip there so you can see it. And I got tired of it flying off, but it flew off because of the way it was mounted. We can fix that. Put this on there, and oh my God, is this heavy. All right, so you zeroed the scale with the plywood. And then, how much does a steel 55 Chevy trunk lid weigh? Oof. 52 pounds. Woo. Okay.
Almost 52 and a half.
Almost 52 and a half pounds. Got it.
Okay, ready for this other one?
And then this trunk lid came, this is the one I put on the car, the original one. And you can see it's been repaired numerous times from when it's blown off and broken the corners where the hood pins are.
It's cracked.
It has, yeah, it's cracked there. It has core mat in it. This is what's called a street weight fiberglass trunk lid from Unlimited Products. The reason it used to break off, let's show them how it installed, Joe, real quick before we weigh it. So we tried to be slick about this, and my friend Todd Griggs and the guys at Hot Rods and Hobbies in Signal Hill, California, welded some aluminum tubing in here that indexed on 3 pins. And then you just had trunk pins right here, right? So this end was pretty well secure. This end, what would happen is the back window, the bottom of it would pop out, air would get under here, then air would shove this back until these pins fully came out, and then it would bend backwards and break off the corners of the fiberglass. That happened more than once. And when it flew above the scoreboard the last time and landed flat on the track, that's when it cracked. So a lot of crazy things have happened with that trunk lid, but I'm kind of attached to it because it's the OG one. I think I might put it back on because I can't even find a new one. Everyone's busy making parts and no one has time to make new stuff or take new orders. So what is the weight difference? We were at 52. Oh, we're now at 31. We just saved...
We're at 22, basically.
We just saved 30 pounds right now by going back to the old broken one. Yes, we will do that. In fact, it might get even lighter because we're not going to reinstall it with these. So we could cut these off right here, these pins. These are solid. And just put a hole in it and do a trunk pin here and a trunk pin there. So it would get a little lighter. So 30 pounds saved right there just by going from a steel trunk to a fiberglass one. We took out the rear wall. I'm having a heck of a time finding doors. Because like I said, I've called a bunch of fiberglass companies. Everyone is between 8 and 12 weeks out on making new parts and taking new orders. And so I haven't found a good set of fiberglass doors. There was one dude online that had a pair, but I don't think they're as straight as what I have. In fact, they might actually be worse. And so what I might just do is start taking a hole saw to the inside of these ones. Because according to Dennis Taylor, who I called about getting doors, he says if you try hard enough, you can get these almost as light as fiberglass. So we might just put our own factory lightweight program on those deals. However, I did buy a new front end from Dennis because Dennis had made his own mold and made several front ends for his and Alex's 55 Chevy. And he had a spare one, so he sold that to me. So I'm going to grab that. And the reason I'm getting that is this one never fit the doors or the cowl at all. We're getting rid of the giant hood scoop, and the cutout doesn't need to be nearly as big as it is on this one. So this one will go bye-bye. 1.5 pounds? I'm saying 1 3/4 pounds of aluminum there.
2.5.
Woohoo! All right, so we're at 32 and change pounds we've already saved.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm not going to have to diet at all. Look at this.
So the car is going back to A-arm. And this was all custom fabricated by Scott's Hot Rods here in Knoxville, Tennessee. They used to be in Oxnard, California. This is our new cross member that's going in, our new A-arms, and Viking coilovers. So we should be able to get a lot more movement out of the front end. Much better steering geometry. Car won't be all over the road at the end of the track. And we'll keep you updated as we move along. Right now we're gonna put the car in the air and tear it all apart. All right guys, we're here with Seb from Scott's Hot Rods. He's going to show us what they designed and built for Blasphemi here behind us, and explain the differences in the two.
Well, if you're familiar with our product, most of the time you see our notches between the upper and lower A-arm pivots. With this car, they have to run in a specific class, which has to be a gasser class where it's either level or slightly up in the front. So we had to drop the crossmember down lower to make that accommodation for the car. We actually set up all the suspension, drew it out in CAD, and to start out with normal ball joint cup angles, we actually had 4 inches up travel, 3 inches of down travel. We actually changed the ball joint cup angles to allow more down travel and limit the up travel on it, so it actually should get a drop out about 4 inches when it takes off on the line.
Which is way better than the 1.5 to 2 inches we were getting before.
Yeah, so it should, everything we built in more caster into it. We should be around 7.5, 8 degrees of caster on this. Our normal front ends we shoot for about 5.5, so we added some more into it. And they're using a Viking coilover on this, which is around 21 or 22 inches fully extended. So we had to make accommodations for that as well. A typical street rod coilover, you're 12, 13 inches tall.
Yeah.
So trying to make everything work. Right now we don't have coil mounts on it. We're gonna be mounting those to the frame rail. But as soon as we get this front end up in there, we're gonna tack it in, make sure everything looks good, and then align the coilover on it.
You guys can see we've got removed all of the old mounts off of here. The shock mounts are gone. So do you think with this crossmember and the A-arms, this will be any lighter than that thing over there?
Overall, we made the crossmember out of 1/8 120 wall 2x4 instead of doing 3/16 wall like our normal front ends are, just to shed some weight on it. Weight-wise, and we are getting rid of the steering box and all those linkages going to the manual rack, which that only weighs around, I think, 18 pounds versus that box and arm linkage, you're probably 40 or 50 pounds.
Yeah.
Thinking with the brakes are going to be the same weight because it's the same style brake.
Correct.
Your straight axle versus the A-arms is probably going to be about the same weight roughly.
And this is mock-up of it. So is this pretty much where the axle was sitting before?
The axle was right about right here.
Okay.
Going
so
across.
It's a little lower than the axle was?
Yes, but the basically from our cross member to the center of the spindle, about 3.5 inches, which on the drop on the straight axle, you're probably around 2. So it should be right about the same height on it.
Okay.
Laying it out, I tried to draw it at a 1/2 inch above your rear.
Above the rear.
So it would be just a 1/2 inch taller.
Right.
But we can fine tune it between the spring, and then if we need to switch to a drop spindle to set it lower and then lift up to where your maxed out height is a 1/2 inch above, and then you can crank the coil over, let it down a little bit if you want to drive it normally and have the front down so you can see. I mean,
true.
That might be nice. So we'll get it because I got both sets of spindles here, so we can fine tune that.
Okay. The upper control arm just barely touches, so we're going to relieve it, fill it back in with reverse drive, and give our fuse toss. So it's just fine.
these little holes. So what I do is get these tight back in here, put these in now, before you put like your upper arm and reassemble it. It's way easier. You can do it without it, but...
So do you torque these to any certain spec, or...?
They're about 75 pounds, you know, that little, but the...
So I notice you're like loosening up that side to get this to fit, so if it's pulled too far, it won't line up.
Tightening one, loosening one. I usually start with about 4 threads on alignment. Now you can take these out, turn them in, turn this one out and pull this one in to set more caster.
Okay.
Also with these washers up here, if I have 3 on each, you can take a washer out, put it back, and that shifts you about a ½ degree to 0.6 more caster by moving those back and forth.
Got you.
And you still can adjust this way and that.
Okay. Fresh new wheel wood. Thank you, wheel wood. So where are we at? We'll see what our dropout is.
Okay. Let me get a measurement real quick. We're right at 67.
67?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That's it?
Okay. And right now we're sitting at, well, 61 3/4. So that's
A little over 6 inches.
yeah, 6 1/4 drop.
6 1/4 drop. And then what do we have? Let's go back to 61. I got this. We're back at 61.
Okay. Or 67. Yeah, we got to go up a little bit right there.
Okay.
That puts us right at just shy of 70, about 16 shy, so 69.
So 3 inches up?
Yeah. And that's with the bump stop installed.
Yeah.
And that's to clear that, was it the oiler on the other side? So if you do move that, you could adjust the bump stop and allow it to come up where it almost kisses the header.
Yeah.
And that should almost bottom out the coilover. So another ½ inch.
I think for the up travel, I think that's probably plenty.
Yeah.
But the 6 inches of dropout from ride height is
It's dramatic.
amazing. Yeah.
What'd you have on the other one?
About 1 3/4 maybe.
Down?
Yeah.
How much
I don't know. It never really, I mean, up,
You couldn't,
we had
couldn't check
plenty to
it
go up,
because
and you
it-
could never really check it. I mean, well, you can see we had the bump stops on there, but literally we probably had about 2 inches of up travel before. So
So 3-inch range to
this will, yeah,
to
this
now
will
a
be an
9-inch
amazing
range,
difference in it,
so.
and just the fact that the whole front end moves now, it'll move and push some of the weight to the back.
yes. Yeah, hopefully it'll transfer how you want to. Getting
Yeah.
everything fine-tuned and bound and rebound on these coilovers should do the trick that you guys are looking for.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I can get this tacked in here and then check and make sure we got spring clearance.
Okay.
And if I need to take those, sand them down a little bit, I can pop the tacks off this one side.
Okay.
But once I get this figured out, I can center it on here, weld them both on. I do have these already located on here. So
Yeah, that's
after
good.
that's set, we can get the coils in here, hook up our steering, and throw the wheels on, and we're ready to go.
Look at this. She's all done. Blasphemi is technically an A-arm car now. And we're calling this the Trophy Bel Air. Looks good. Looks good. This car's going to work very well now. Looking forward to this. I can't wait to get this thing on a racetrack and see what it does. Can't wait. All we got to do is set it on the ground, adjust our coils, our beautiful new Viking coilovers here, double adjustable, triple actually, 3 adjustments. We've got one here, and also one down in the middle here. Yeah, all new wheel wood, disc brakes, spindles, another great job by Scott's Hot Rods and Customs. On the ground, ready to go. Now we take it home, We got a whole bunch of other things we got to do. Like that front clip's getting changed. Trunk's going back on, the fiberglass one. We got a lot of stuff to do to get it ready for drag week for Mike and Tony. But there she is. God, this car's gonna move out now. No reason it can't.
This is my first time seeing it in person, and I am excited. The track width is about 2 inches wider per side, so the wheels are no longer sucked in like they were before. We now have all kinds of clearance between our oil pan and our cross member, which by the way doesn't move. And so that problem is gone. We now have suspension travel. Like this car, with some tweaking of the knobs on these Viking shocks, this thing should hook and it should book once again.
It will be really easy to make a belly pan for this now.
Yep, that would be
There's
great.
nothing underneath there. A belly pan.
Yeah,
So easy
we
to
could do
do.
a belly pan instead of a diaper. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, let's do this. Let's pull the front clip off because it's not going back on.
Well,
and,
hopefully.
And then we'll figure it out. Yeah, hopefully. We have another front clip, and hopefully it's going on. If we run out of time, this goes back on, but not with that hood scoop. Something much shorter and see-through. See-through for sure.
Or just make a plexiglass one.
I need a transparent front clip, the entire thing. Just clear, Lexan.
Right?
That'd be sick if you could just see all of this the whole time. We're like Honda guys, back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, Honda guys would cut the entire middle of their hood out and then Lexan it so you could see that, you know, they had a Pete Jackson supercharger or something or some nitrous. Like, why not a transparent front clip? I probably have to clean this thing more often. Never mind, forget that. No transparent front clip, just a transparent scoop.
We'd have to up the show quality of this thing if we had to do that.
I'm not doing that. I just want it to run good. So this blower got sent back to the blower shop because we put about 2,000 miles on it. There was a tight spot when you rotated the blower pulley, and it perfectly lined up with the injector bungs. And the Teflon strips had about this wide of an area where it was melted on both rotors, and it lined up perfectly with here. And I think that is from backfiring this thing a couple of times and the fuel igniting right there on the Teflon strip. And so anyway, the bearings, everything else was fine, but we needed to go through that and have that re-stripped because the last thing you want to do is go to a drag and drive event with a blower that is on its way out. Because I don't know the route at Hot Rod Drag Week. They don't tell it to you in advance, but they're usually 900 to 1,400 mile long drives plus drag racing at 4 different tracks, 5 different times. So that's hard on these things. And I've considered ways to kind of get around some of that. Like, how do we make a roots blower live on the street with really tight clearances that's set up for E85 fuel? And I've considered doing all kinds of things, like not even spinning the blower when driving it down the road. You know, we could take the belt off, you know, and stick a ratchet handle in here and just keep this from turning, and then take the burst panel off the front of the intake manifold and put a throttle body there and just let it breathe through that. We could do that, but then how much of it is a street car if you're doing all of that stuff, you know, just to make it live on the street? So I'm a big believer in, let's just put a big blower pulley on it, slow it down, drive it around, and when you get to the track, just change the blower pulley and run it. Here's the Teflon strips. This is what physically seal the rotor to the case. And this is a wear item. This will wear as it runs. What was happening was right here, right there, and right there had burn marks. And I think it was from, we backfired this thing a few times, and that was the fuel coming out of the injector and igniting right there on the rotor. This is from the blower shop. It's called their race case. And so it has an adjustable shoe right here that will seal the rotor to the top of the case. And then that's there. Supposedly it changes the boost ramp. It'll help it build boost quicker. Then in the bottom, it has a delta outlet, and instead of having a big port all the way down here, it's closed off. That seals the rotor to the bottom of the case a longer distance, and that also is supposed to help improve the rate at which it builds boost. It's just a badass piece. For an 871 supercharger, I'm not aware of what else you can do to one of these to make them work any better than this one. And on our combo, this thing makes about, depending on where you are in the track, like on the two-step, it makes about 14 pounds. Going down track makes about 15 pounds. We've turned it up past that, but on E85 fuel, it just makes hot air and it doesn't really go any faster. You know, the next thing we could do is methanol, but we're so close to our cage cert at various times when the car is working that switching to methanol, I don't know. It's you're talking about a whole new fuel system in the car because my current fuel system won't flow enough fuel to run methanol. The benefits of running methanol would be way cooler air inlet temps through this thing, which, as you guys know, if you can cool the air going in, you can add more fuel, you can make more power. Currently on E85, it leaves the starting line at 240 degrees of air inlet temp, and at the end of the pass, it's down to like 190. That's really hot. On gasoline, like leaded race fuel, it's even higher. On methanol, it'd probably be 100 degrees. Like it would be night and day power difference. But like I said, that's a wholesale change to that car, completely different fuel system, and then you're starting over in terms of tuning, and drag week is a month away. We don't have time for that, so I doubt we're gonna do it. I think we're gonna hope our new front suspension improves the whole shot so much that we can put this thing at mid 8-second passes every time at drag week and be competitive. All right, I know the whole front end needs to come apart and get painted, but it would be really motivating to see the blower back on, so I think we should put the blower back on.
Let's do it.
Okay. Excited. It'd be cool if this thing was O-ringed.
The blower?
Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
I'm giving serious consideration to taking the spacer out from underneath the injector, and lowering the injector down and lowering the scoop down, and partly because we've had problems with sealing that thing. So much easier with two people.
Yeah. Boom. Hey, I like them apples.
Yes. Oh, I remember why. If you take this off, you can run it. Otherwise,
That last one gets blocked, huh?
yeah. There you go. You can run it like that. So allegedly there's a gain by getting the injector away. I just don't know what it is. But if we do this, then it just barely comes through the hood and we don't need much of a hood scoop. You know, even if we put a flat air filter on top. So I'm kind of leaning towards this, but we can bench race that in air conditioning.